Should you start a YouTube channel or a podcast? In this video, I'm gonna break down the pros and cons of each so you can figure out what the best option or decision is for you. And I've done both of these things personally. I have a YouTube channel. Since you're watching that right now, you know that. And I also have a podcast, so I know what goes into running both and the great things that come along with it and the not so great things. So let's get right into it and break it down. So let's start off with podcasting. Podcasting blew up in popularity over the past few years because it's never been easier to start a podcast, and people love podcasters. Look at Joe Rogan or the Call Her Daddy podcast. They get mainstream and people are very, very invested in the podcasts that they listen to often. And since it's never been easier to start a show, more and more people are trying to be podcasters themselves. So let's start off with the good when it comes to podcasting. It's never been easier to start a show. There are tools out there that make it so easy to record your show, get it live, and get it distributed across different podcast hosts. So that's a huge pro. Second, you don't have to show your face to run a podcast because it is audio only if it's just the podcast portion, which makes it far more approachable for people who aren't comfortable getting in front of the camera. Editing audio is also extremely easy using a tool like GarageBand, and there's also ones even for your phone, or you can even do no editing really at all if you don't want to, and you can still get a pretty solid experience for the listener. So it makes it very easy to put content together regardless of where you are or what you're doing, and it also doesn't require any sort of heavy equipment. Definitely should invest in a microphone, but you can still get that under $100 and you're gonna have some crisp and quality audio. Another huge pro for podcasting is that it's collaborative in nature. So naturally, by having an interview show, if that's what you go with, you're gonna be interviewing different people, accessing their audience, as well as growing your own network, all while having conversations that build your brand as well. So that's another huge pro for podcasting. And it's a huge reason why so many people decide to start a show in the first place. Podcast listeners are also really invested in the podcast they listen to, as well as the hosts of those shows. And advertisers know this. So if you have an established podcast, you can charge a ton of money for brands to work with you or to integrate into your shows. So it does make running a podcast or a successful one a very lucrative option to make money while building your own brand. And this really comes down to the long form content that a podcast provides. People are typically listening to shows while they're on their commute or doing something that they do every day or very often. So they're spending a lot of virtual time with the podcast host, meaning they feel very connected with the host, which makes it a huge, huge tool for the host or the people who are running the show to market to their listeners and give brands the opportunity to speak to these people. Also, when someone subscribes to your podcast, they're subscribing to your RSS feed, which means that as long as they use their podcast app, they're gonna keep getting sent your episodes, which is unlike a lot of other social media platforms where an algorithm dictates who sees what on the platform. So those are all the pros when it comes to podcasting, and there are a lot of them, but there are also some major cons that people don't think about when they jump into starting a show, and they really, really should. So the first major con is it's really, really hard to grow a podcast audience in 2022. And that comes down to a fundamental flaw that is current within the podcasting space, and that's discoverability. Think about how you found your favorite shows. I'm willing to bet it was from someone you follow on social media or a paid ad or someone you know that was featured on that show, meaning all the traffic is coming from other places not native to podcasting, which is a major, major issue. People don't find new podcasts typically from their podcast app. It just doesn't happen very often, especially if you're a small show, which means that you need to drive traffic to your show from other means. And this is often very difficult for new shows that don't have an existing presence on social or the money behind it to pay for ads to spread the word. So unless you have a social presence, a blog, an email list, some sort of external traffic that you can send to your podcast that would actually be interested in the show, it can be very difficult to grow just from podcasting alone. And podcasting can actually return no results whatsoever from a financial or a growth perspective if you don't do things the right way and stick with it. So a lot of people do quit. There's this crazy stat where 90% of podcasts, or maybe even higher, don't even make it to their third episode. And that is the case for so many shows because they don't think about the cons when it comes to podcasting. They only think about the pros. And none of this is to discourage you from podcasting. It's just really important to understand this before you start something to figure out if it aligns with what you're actually trying to do and if you can even get there and how you execute getting to the place you're trying to go. So those are the major cons for podcasting alone. Who would podcasting be great for? someone who's looking to expand their network, someone who's maybe not comfortable in front of camera, someone who's not super obsessed with growing an audience very quickly, or for someone who's just looking to do it for fun, to have these conversations in a stored place to come back and listen to later. A podcast could be fantastic for you, but if you are looking to grow an audience, you're probably gonna have to go above and beyond if you don't have an existing audience to send to that show. And that's where YouTube can come in and how YouTube is very, very different. So now let's move on to running a YouTube channel and break down the pros and cons. So let's move into the YouTube pros. Unlike podcasting, YouTube will actually find the audience for you. They have over 122 million daily active users on the platform. So there are millions of people there literally every day looking for new content, and YouTube will help be the matchmaker to find content for people that want it. So if you have great content, they will provide you the audience as long as you're doing things right. It's also the second largest search engine in the world, giving you a huge opportunity to learn search engine optimization to make sure that your videos are getting in front of interested people through leveraging what a search engine can do, which is provide content for specific searches in the search bar, which is a super huge opportunity for someone creating content or building out a show. It gives you the advantage of targeting your content in a strategic way to get in front of an interested audience that you know would love it. And to expand on that, YouTube has great organic reach still in 2022. There are so many videos uploaded every single day, but there is the demand for more content. So if you do have great content, or if you're serving an underserved area of YouTube, there still is massive opportunity for your content to get in front of new people completely for free all through YouTube. And to really drive this home, there is viral potential still on YouTube. If a video pops, it can get hundreds of thousands or millions of views completely for free, and you can actually get paid for that, in fact, where that's not present on podcasting whatsoever. That just doesn't really exist. A podcast alone isn't gonna go viral because that whole discovery piece, whereas if a YouTube video starts to pop off, YouTube will then promote the video for you. So you're getting paid to grow your presence and to get more viewers and subscribers, which is a massive opportunity and a place where YouTube stands out way better than podcasting. And the final two major pros when it comes to YouTube is the super long content lifespan. When you make a video today, it can still be bringing in views, money, and subscribers years down the line. And you can even look at my channel to drive that home. I still have videos that I made 3 years ago that are bringing in daily views, subscribers, and income. And again, YouTube is generating this traffic for me, so there's no additional work for me. And podcasting really doesn't have that. And the final pro for YouTube specifically is that YouTube will actually pay you to create content and for the views that you get on that content once you reach a certain threshold of watch time and subscribers, which is a huge advantage. It allows monetization to become thoughtless. You can just create the content, get the views, and make money. Plus, an added huge pro to YouTube is that the traffic is very monetizable from other ways of making money too, because people are conditioned to go off of YouTube and do something else, which is a huge advantage for YouTube as well. But like anything, it's not all pros. There are some cons when it comes to YouTube, and here are the major cons that you need to keep in mind before you start a channel. There's a lot more to learn when it comes to running a YouTube channel the right way. You need to learn how to write effective titles. You need to learn how to create effective thumbnails that go along with the titles. You need to learn YouTube SEO and video editing. There's so many more things that go into running an effective YouTube channel and getting a video created that people actually want and will consume, especially if you're brand new to this. It's a lot to learn at once. It can be easier if you have a budget to outsource some of these things, but if you're a one-man or one-woman team and you're doing this all by yourself, it can be a lot more daunting than just recording audio. It's also a lot more intimidating to put yourself out there in something like a video. This is very nerve-wracking for a lot of people, speaking to a camera and then publishing it out there to the world. So that may be something that slows it down for you or makes it harder for you to get into, but it is something I will say that you do become far more comfortable with time, and it only really comes through doing it. So even if you do, that's something that will likely be temporary and will get easier over time. YouTube can also be a super slow grind. Podcasting can be too, but definitely on YouTube because there is so much competition. For some channels that are super successful today, it took them years to get to that point, and they never really started to see success until they were years into their posting content experience and posting on YouTube. So it can take legitimately years before you see any traction, and a lot of people aren't willing to put in that much time, even if the potential payoff is huge. They just get so fixated on now or a week from now, and they can't see the larger picture. So that's a huge thing that you want to keep in mind. Although we typically see the outliers that pop off really quickly, the norm is usually a far slower grind. And if you don't provide a product that people actually want to watch, you can post thousands of YouTube videos that never get views, that never get you subscribers, and never end up making you any money. So it really is not just about doing YouTube, it's about continuously getting better at doing it to get the results that you want. So there's definitely no guarantees when it comes to growing a YouTube channel or a podcast. It really comes down to consistently getting better and putting out a product that people actually want and will show up to consume again and again and again. But don't get me wrong, both of these options are fantastic options. And I think you should focus more on the pros and where you want to go, and then make your decision as to which one you start based on that. But I always get asked, what should I do? What should I start, a podcast or a YouTube channel? And my answer would be both. I think you should start a podcast and a YouTube channel, especially if you want to do an interview style show. What I would do is run the podcast, but also film it. By filming it, you have the option to then repurpose that content to do social media the right way and to do YouTube the right way, which you can't really do if you just have the audio. People do try to share their audio podcasts on YouTube, but it's a tough sell to get people to watch your audio only content when it's competing against video content. It's just not gonna happen. It's not going to work in 99.9% of cases. So what you should do is run your show, film it, then create 2 YouTube channels. One for the full length episodes, and then one for clips. And on the clips channel, for each episode, pick 4 to 6 of the best moments from each episode, which are focused on one specific topic, and then format each of those as its own standalone piece of content for the clips channel. This will give you the opportunity for the moments of your show to build an audience for you, funneling traffic back to the podcast, either on YouTube or the audio only version. And this remedies the biggest problem with podcasting, which is discovery. So if you can use YouTube to help you out with the whole discovery portion, it can really make the whole experience a lot better, it can make growth far faster, and it can make sure that you're making more money by building more assets and providing the listening or viewing experience for however people want to consume. If you have video and audio, there's nobody who can't consume your podcast if they wanted to. And why this whole clips approach works so well is because if someone is brand new to you and your show, it's a very tough sell to get them to sit down and listen to your podcast for an hour. But if you have a small micro clip that's very interesting to them, they may sit down and watch a 4 or 5 minute video, which then leads them to watch another 4 or 5 minute video, and so on and so on. And by the end of their viewing experience, they basically consumed the full episode, but they only came into your world because you did so in a far more interesting and approachable way. So that's my 2 cents. I would do both. I would create 2 YouTube channels, one for the full length episodes, one for clips. Use YouTube to remedy the problem that podcasting has of discovery and allow that to funnel traffic back to your podcast, giving people both options, audio and video. But those are the major differences and pros of cons of each. After watching this, I'd love to hear from you. Are you gonna start a podcast or a YouTube channel? Let me know in the comment section down below. Or if you're gonna do both, definitely let me know that too. And if you're looking for some more help with podcasting or YouTube, I've linked 2 videos up right here. This one's for podcasting, and then this one's for YouTube specifically. Regardless of which route you're going, it'll help you get started and grow an audience and a presence. So go ahead and click whichever one makes the most sense for you. I can't wait for you to get your show up and running and growing. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel because I'll help you run a better show or YouTube channel and grow it faster. I'll talk to you in the next one. Keep crushing it. Peace and love.